So today I was just having a look on Twitter and I saw this one tweet by someone who I wasn't familiar with until I read the name and saw the podcast that they were a co-host on, their name is Erica Mirabal, and their podcast is Left Bitches Who Are Right, which is a really funny name. And I haven't actually listened to that podcast, but at some point I probably will. I think it's behind a paywall. And what she said in this tweet has really resonated with people today on Twitter. And she said, capitalism really robs us of our serotonin and then it sells us back to us. I'll just have to get closer to the mic here. And I thought it was so condensed, this very important issue that I've been thinking about for many years now. And other people have brought it up, in relation to addiction and depression and all of that. And Krishnamurti, a very long time ago, said it's no indication, basically saying it's no indication to be well adjusted to a sick society. It's not an indication of mental health to be, well adjusted to a sick society. When you see the suicide rates going up in the United States, the US is a failed state. You could pretty much call it that at this point. COVID has exposed that. You can see that people are not coping with depression. They're not coping with the anxiety of the insecurity in which neoliberalism constantly creates, insecurity with work, insecurity with a whole host of things. Prices keep going up, wages keep going down or remain the same, and everything is becoming unaffordable for people. This includes even in Australia. You can see the price of everything going up, but there are a lot of people now that cannot afford various things that they used to be able to afford, say, 30 years ago, or even 5 years ago. For example, even a cup of coffee now is going up to the point where if you are unemployed or you are getting a basic pension or something in Australia, it becomes pretty unaffordable to actually even have a cup of coffee. And that sounds really bizarre, but that's the way it is. But this tweet by Erica Mirabal from Left Bitches Who Are Right obviously struck a nerve with a lot of people because the amount of retweets and likes that this got and continues to go up about capitalism and how really it's just a statement of really capitalism, neoliberalism, that it is a dysfunctional and ecocidal system which is basically destroying the lives of many people and enriching the lives of a small few. It's also destroying the lives of people in target countries of U.S. empire. It is destroying the lives of people of countries which have not submitted to the U.S. As somebody in a book that I can't bring their name forth at the moment to my mind, but the CIA agents, one of them said to him, capitalism is the invisible army. Sorry, the CIA is the invisible army of capitalism. And as Lenin said, fascism is capitalism in decay. And, you can basically say capitalism is inextricably linked with imperialism. So it is a scourge of a system. It is a scourge of a system which it becomes more and more bizarre as days go by. I was listening to Abby Martin and Robbie Martin doing a podcast where they were talking about these JPEGs, files, image files. They could be JPEGs or another file format that are being sold for like $6 million or something. Even though, obviously there is no copyright in the person who buys a $6 million JPEG or PNG file or whatever, obviously doesn't own the copyright. And here they are. This is the new thing. I even saw some 60 Minutes program talking about it. I think they're called NFTs or something. I haven't really looked into it a great deal, but the point is that with capitalism, as things get more and more bizarre, meaning where there are people and the small percentage of people who are doing fine, thanks very much, and profiting during COVID, and then the rest of us are struggling, and some have become, and many, many millions are becoming homeless and all of that, or that rich big pharma will not part with their patents for the vaccine, so that people in India are dying by the thousands, where it becomes so immoral, basically, capitalism, this drive for profit. And where people become desperate to make money, they will start selling desperate things, or there will be new fads introduced into the public by the people who have so much money that they can just get together and think up some ridiculous way of creating another fad that people will buy into and buy up, like these NFTs, these JPEGs and stuff. There are people that have so much money that they can just sit and think, Now, what could I promote that will become a thing and then everybody will start buying it? It'll be like a short fad. And then there are people in society who are basically trying to find ways to make money. And so it doesn't matter if it's environmentally destructive, it's as long as they can make ends meet. So people are sort of producing kind of rubbishy things that are out of plastic and all sorts of, non-sustainable and things that cannot be recycled. There's all these, you only have to see online the amount of things that are being produced that are you couldn't recycle, and they're just kind of throwaway ticky-tacky things. And everybody is kind of producing all these ticky-tacky things to make ends meet. It's sort of really sad, Instead of us being in a situation now where we have the technology where we could actually be doing less work a week, we could actually be doing what Spain is trying to introduce, which is 6 hours a day, or is it a 4-day week? It's either 6 hours a day or a 4-day week, one of the two. There are countries thinking about this as an idea. A way of the future is reducing the working hours of people, and still paying them the same wage. And actually, people still it seems that people still produce a good amount of work when they are given less hours. So, in a world where we have all these technological advances, you would think that we could actually do less and have more quality of life. But instead, where people are doing more, they're stretched to capacity, and it's affecting their mental health. And this is where that quote from that woman from Erica Marble saying capitalism is robbing us of our serotonin, and then selling it back to us. Basically getting people to have to cope with this ridiculous neoliberalism. Basically finding, ways like with the meditation industry now, or the yoga industry, people making huge amounts of money selling meditation and selling yoga and all these, and a whole host of different things that are designed to help people cope with something that is untenable, that is unsustainable, that is anti-people. And that is a very disturbing thing. There's a lot of people now making a lot of money from inventing all kinds of ways to help people de-stress and to keep people to help people cope with what they shouldn't have to cope with. And then there is a whole host of drugs that are out now to help people cope with what they shouldn't have to cope with in a sane human society. And that is really disturbing, particularly if you've been around on the earth a while, which I have, and I've seen what it was like for about 10 or 12 years, probably 15 years before neoliberalism really hit. I saw how people were living before that time, from the 60s to the mid-70s, probably even late 70s. And then I saw how it started to change when neoliberalism really kicked in. And I was also experiencing that when it kicked in as well. Like I literally saw the change from when nurses, being a former RN, when nurses were able to, they were busy a lot of the time, but they had slow times and relaxed times briefly where they could sort of regroup, and you could do things like cleaning things that were getting particularly dirty or restocking or whatever. You could do things during your sort of what you call downtime, where things weren't so busy in the ward, and you could kind of basically fix things up, clean up and restock and all that kind of stuff. Basically, clean house. Well, now I saw it literally go from after I did my training in the hospital, and when it started in 1981 or 82, I saw how that was taken away from nurses that time. And if you had any downtime at all, if there was a ward that wasn't so busy, you were immediately taken out of that ward and sent to another ward to do something or to be in charge of that ward. There was no such thing anymore as downtime. So I saw that happen in the early 80s when I just became an RN. And that was a really unfortunate thing, because basically you'd go from a ward you'd be there when it was busy, and then they would take you away when there was a little bit, which didn't happen very often, there was downtime, but they'd take you away if there was the slightest indication that there was a little bit of downtime, and you'd be put somewhere else. I've noticed even in Woolies, which is a supermarket here in Australia, where there's a duopoly between Coles and Woolies, they're two major supermarkets, they basically, even stocking shelves, which was once kind of, you could do it at a relatively sort of easy pace, Now that's really stressful too. Anything that used to be where you could do it at a civilized pace has become now sort of where everything has to be done at this crazy pace. And an example of that, of course, is Amazon. Amazon, now people have to urinate in bottles if they're driving trucks or whatever. Some people are wearing diapers to Amazon warehouses because their pay gets docked if they actually have to go to the bathroom and spend too much time in the bathroom, or it's looked down upon. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It'd be interesting to see how many people end up with kidney problems and other problems due to that ridiculousness. And Amazon is notoriously anti-union and does its best to make sure that unions never get any foothold in Amazon, because they don't want people to have a civilized, and they don't want people to get decent wages. They had to be pushed to give them even, I think they eventually got a $15, I'm not entirely sure of that, minimum wage. That's not a livable wage even. And here they are in the United States fussing about a $15 minimum wage when it should be something like $24. And here are people working, they're living in shelters. They're living in shelters and they're working 2 jobs, some people, living in homeless shelters.
$20 billion is all it would take to end homelessness in the United States. And again, we've got the money. We've totally got we got the money to give everybody health care. We've got the money to get rid of, to give everybody education. We got the money to give everybody a job. We've got the money to fix our roads and bridges. We've got the money. We're just run by a bunch of criminals.
I mean, the insanity. And why are we putting up with that? I mean, there should be general strikes all over the place. If there was if people boycotted basically something like Amazon, you would find Jeff Bezos would pull his socks up real quick. If everybody refused to buy Amazon products, and I know that can be hard for some people in some countries because they have such a monopoly on a lot of products now, but if there was any way you could buy from another location, particularly independent owners and independent business owners, then people should be doing that and boycotting these disastrous and greedy corporations that are treating people like garbage. I'm getting off the track here, but this is all related to capitalism robbing people of serotonin and then selling it back to them, in all these different pills, etc. And Jeff Bezos, I think he makes I think it's $40,000 a second or something. Or is it $40,000 a minute? I don't know, but he's very incredibly wealthy. Elon Musk is more wealthy than Jeff Bezos, but Jeff Bezos has an unbelievable amount of money. He's, I don't know, he's second richest man in the world, I think. And it's not through his hard work. It's through the hard work and starvation wages of many tens of thousands of people that work in these dreadful, it's almost like a sweatshop, really. It's like what we've been putting people in Bangladesh and in Vietnam and in Taiwan and in all these different countries in Latin America, various countries where we've treated them like slave labor. They're still getting virtually nothing in some of these factories in Bangladesh, and it's working in terrible conditions, very dangerous conditions. There's child slave labor that still goes on. I mean, this is capitalism. And why are we letting this happen when we, the people, outnumber these very wealthy, greedy, selfish billionaires and the like? Why are we letting them get away with this? Why are we letting them and the government and the politicians who support them, and they all support one another? They're all in cahoots with one another. It's a big kleptocracy. Why are we allowing these small amount of people get away with that? When we, the people, have the power. The saying, all power to the people, it's not something that we should be hoping for. We have it already. We're just not using it. And I just think when is it going to get too bad for the people to rise up? And I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about using the power of the purse. I'm talking about joining hands with other countries that are the targets of U.S. empire and basically being in solidarity. There are all, imperialism, like Lenin said, is inextricably linked to, I don't know if he said those actual words, inextricably linked with capitalism. Capitalism and imperialism go together. So capitalism, it's not just a domestic disaster that's happening in the US or in Australia or in any of these other countries. All over the world, neoliberalism is a scourge. It's not just that. And there's no pretty way, you can't put a happy face on capitalism. It has to end. It's bringing us all to the brink of extinction. And we have no rights to be destroying this planet when there are other sentient beings on the planet, non-humans, who have a right to live on this planet. It's their planet too. We have no right to be using them as resources. And I'm not blaming capitalism for that. We're to blame for that when we make demands for animal products, and we're using them as things. We're eating, wearing, and using them. We have no rights to use these sentient animals that way. So we're going to have to rethink and have a different vision for this planet. And that starts with us pushing back on these corporations that are destroying the planet, these corporations that are destroying the lives of people like Amazon by giving them pathetic wages, making them wee into their diapers when they're working. If somebody would have told me when I was in my 20s that it was going to be like this, I probably wouldn't have believed it. And it is appalling to me that this is where we are. I'm actually relieved that I'm not in my 20s now. I think it's appalling what young people have to deal with. I don't think in a depression sense, because I'm prone to getting depression, and I have to say that if I wasn't employing some strategies, meaning if I wasn't being in the present, I'm not sure I could deal with mentally very well. I don't think I could deal very well with what is happening on the planet, not only neoliberalism, but imperialism and the oppression of, other countries that are not submitting to the empire. And, everything that stems from that, capitalism and imperialism, everything that stems from that is anti-people and anti-non-human animals. But I'm not blaming capitalism for our non-veganism. We're responsible for that. But if somebody had told me what was going to be happening, I would have thought, no, that could not be how it's going. I mean, aren't we supposed to be progressing? Aren't we supposed to be evolving as a species? Instead, we've allowed a small group of people to basically call the shots for the entire planet. Lord Bezos, Lord Gates, Lord Musk, and then all these idiots that are kleptocrats in government, or who are so interested in their careers that they will just submit to US empire, and like in Australia, our foreign policy is dictated to by the US empire. It's appalling to me how Australia has gone that way. It's a neoliberal mess. We have two parties. We have more than two parties, but there are two parties that are basically merging to one, just like in the US. And the same is happening in the UK, all these Western countries. So anyway, when I see that little tweet by that woman, capitalism is robbing us of our serotonin and then selling it back to us. I mean, doesn't that just sum it up? Because you see over and over again, capitalism co-opting movements and then selling it back to people. Coca-Cola co-opting the black civil rights movement and then in ads selling it back to people. Isn't it just how it is? Repackaging and basically demeaning very, very, very important movements or very important things like meditation and the like, yoga, all those things that were meant to be free, all those things that were meant to be something that helped us evolve, are being repackaged and sold back to very wealthy people, sold back to basically white wealthy people. And the rest of us are in situations like what's happening in Amazon. You couldn't make this up. So something has to happen. I'm not talking about violence, but if the capitalist class, the 1%, and the people who support them, the people in government all over the world, the politicians, if those people don't wake up soon, then they better go and read their history books about the French Revolution is all I can say. Because there's only so much that people can take before, as was it JFK who said, I can't remember what his exact words were, but basically I think he said, if you don't make nonviolent protests possible, then you make violent revolution inevitable. And that's what I see is coming.
These young people are saying that there must be a revolution of values in our country. As Jimmy Baldwin said on one occasion, what advantage is there in being integrated into a burning house? That there must be a restructuring of the architecture of our society where values are concerned. And with this, I would agree with. So in the quest for integration, I think we can offer our whole nation something, because there are three evils in our nation. It's not only racism, but economic exploitation and poverty would be one, and then militarism. And I think in a sense, and in a very real sense, these three are tied inextricably together, and we aren't going to get rid of one without getting rid of the other.